Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Richard Arjun Kaul, and welcome to my video internet show. Today is June the 29th. Start again. It's actually July the 2nd, right? Yeah. Right, we're going to start again, okay? I knew that. Okay, right. Just give me the signal. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Richard Arjun Kaul, and welcome to my video internet show. Today is July the 2nd, 2015, and I'm talking again from New Jersey in the United States. And it's been an interesting last few days. There's been a lot of things that have been going on in the media and in the news that are medically related and that seem to have relevance to the practice of medicine. So it seems to be a very frequently discussed topic: health. It's important for everyone. Without your health, everything else is, as they say, meaningless. But the first issue that I want to talk about is something that seems to be a uniquely American phenomenon. Although I had a discussion with a computer software guy at a function the other evening who said it's not just American, it's global. And it's the issue of synthetic opiate painkiller abuse. Now, I wrote a piece about this and about the interaction of this aspect of healthcare and the current governor of New Jersey, Mr. Chris Christie. And the reason I wrote this piece was to try and illustrate how complex this problem is. It's not, as most of the media would have people believe, a case of just bad doctors handing out strong opiates to people without proper examinations or without good reason. And I think that, as I said before, it seems that whenever there's a problem in the healthcare sector, it's the medical profession that seem to end up being the whipping boys, and that's not, I think, fair. But more importantly, I don't think it paints an accurate picture of what really is going on. And it's important to have an accurate picture so that we can have an accurate solution. Otherwise, with false information, we're never going to find the remedy to the problem. So I'd like to start by reading, if I could, the article that I wrote, and then I'll talk about the issue further. The title of the article is "The Opiate Crisis and Chris Christie." The recent spate of arrests of New Jersey physicians accused of overprescribing synthetic opiates to patients with chronic pain syndromes is one of the many symptoms of a failing US healthcare system. It would be almost impossible for any outsider to begin to comprehend the complexity of the problem, and absolutely impossible to make the connection between Chris Christie and the epidemic. This article will attempt to draw the connections between the policies and laws that the US presidential hopeful has enacted during his tenure as New Jersey governor and the pharmacological plague that allegedly has America in its grip. There are several key players in this Shakespearean tragedy, all of which hold some responsibility for the epidemic. It is not just the physicians, and they are: 1, the patients; 2, physicians; 3, pharmaceutical companies; 4, politicians; 5, lawyers; and 6, the New Jersey Medical Board. The most effective way, I've always found, to communicate the nature of a problem and the multiple relationships of which it is constituted is using the narrative format. And so, I will tell a story that typifies the epidemic. And so, Once upon a time, there was an otherwise healthy 37-year-old carpenter who was driving along the New Jersey Turnpike. And accidentally, he collided with an 18-wheel cargo truck. The force of the impact threw the driver against his steering wheel, causing him to sustain severe injuries to his head, neck, mid, and lower back. About 10 minutes later, an ambulance, a police car, and a fire truck arrived, and the semi-conscious carpenter was removed from the battered car, placed on a hardboard, and had his neck immobilized with a cervical collar. The ambulance sped off with sirens blazing to the nearest hospital, where he was immediately sent for an MRI and CAT scan of his entire body to ensure that he had not sustained any fractures of his spine or ruptured any internal organs. Fortunately for this young man, there were no detectable spinal injuries, and after spending another 12 hours in the emergency room under observation, he was discharged home in the care of his wife. A week later, he began to experience severe pain in his lower back and left leg, which woke him from his sleep. By the 10th day after his accident, he was having difficulty urinating and walking upstairs. The following week, his symptoms got progressively worse, as did the unremitting pain, which at times caused him to vomit. And so he sought medical attention with his family doctor. The physician was unable to identify any specific injury that might be causing his pain, and so referred him to the local interventional pain clinic. On the day of his appointment, he happened to be browsing the internet and came across an article that described how patients in India with back injuries were being successfully treated with minimally invasive spine surgery. The carpenter printed the article and presented it to the interventional pain physician in the hope that he too could have his back injury corrected with minimally invasive spine surgery. However, he knew immediately from the expression on the face of the physician that the answer would be no. The disappointed doctor then went on to explain that the governor of the state, Chris Christie, had passed laws which made it very difficult for New Jersey patients to receive such care. The now bewildered patient inquired as to why the governor had taken such action. The response he received was that the hospitals and neurosurgeons had donated vast sums of money to his political action committee, on the understanding that he would pass legislation to prohibit the performance of minimally invasive spine surgery by interventional pain physicians. It was difficult for him to comprehend how and why politicians would involve themselves in the practice of medicine. The only explanation he could muster was money. 3 weeks after the appointment, the poor carpenter was still in excruciating pain and called the physician to inquire what could be done to reduce his agony. The doctor suggested a course of opiate pain medications and the application of heating pads to the lower back. This therapeutic combination worked wonders, and the patient began to feel significantly better. However, after the 4-week period of medications was complete, the pain returned, and he was back to where he had been before the doctor prescribed the painkillers. Knowing that the opiates removed his pain, he requested that the physician renew the prescription. This pattern went on for a year, and then suddenly, one day, he heard that the doctor had been arrested for allegedly overprescribing painkillers. The carpenter called the office and was told that the physician had in fact been arrested and could no longer prescribe any medications. For the next 5 days, he tried to manage his pain with aspirin and heating pads, but to little avail. And so he sought help on the internet through pharmacies in foreign countries. Eventually, the carpenter found a physician in India who performed a minimally invasive fusion, after which his pain disappeared, and which, over a period of 4 weeks, allowed him to stop taking any painkillers. 2 months after the same-day surgery, he returned to work as a carpenter. The end. Now, that's a little bedtime-esque story to try and paint the picture and lay the foundation as to what really is going on in this sector of medicine with regards to the management of chronic pain and the involvement of lawyers, politicians, the pharmaceutical companies. But I go on to make a further comment after the story, and it's a comment that goes on to ask a very important question. And what I say is this: there are many lessons in the above story, but the most compelling is the importance of keeping political corruption out of modern-day medicine. Mr. Christie accepted bribes from the large hospital and neurosurgical lobbies and introduced legislation that supported his corporate donors. In addition, he vetoed laws that would have encouraged the development of an outpatient, minimally invasive spine sector, which, had one existed in the above story, would have allowed the carpenter to receive care in New Jersey. Instead, as a consequence of the laws passed by Christie, the carpenter was forced to take opiate painkillers for over a year and seek medical attention in a foreign country. The clear message is that Mr. Christie does not care about his state citizens, and most definitely would not care about the citizens of America, which, in my opinion, precludes him from occupying the White House. One final question that I have is, why has Mr. Christie not had his legal henchmen arrest the executives of the pharmaceutical companies that manufacture the synthetic opiates and are headquartered in New Jersey? Could the answer be money or fear? Now, to some people, that might seem like a rather hard-hitting and pointed piece, and I would agree, it is, and it needs to be, because the problem is of that nature. However, it is not going to be solved by arresting doctors and persecuting the medical profession. These medications, these synthetic opiates, such as OxyContin, Percocet, oxycodone, they're manufactured by pharmaceutical companies that are based in New Jersey. Now, none of these executives have been held responsible for this epidemic. And I make the comparison of what happened in Wall Street back in the early part of the 200s, when the financial shenanigans that went on ended up with the heads of certain banks and financial corporations being held responsible, with some of them going to jail. That same principle, I think, should apply here. If we're going to go after the doctors and you're going to say, this guy is a bad doctor because he prescribed pain medications to a patient that was having chronic pain, shouldn't we also be looking at the pharmaceutical companies that are manufacturing these medications and then sending out reps to the doctor's office, to the doctor's offices to push these medications? Now, I know that Mr. Christie has just recently announced his intention to run for the presidency of America, and of course, as Oscar Wilde once said, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. And he's definitely doing as much as he possibly can to get himself talked about. He wants to be famous. However, fame is a double-edged sword. And I'd like to conclude this little section, which started talk on the issue of opiate abuse, by reading a little quote from, you know what it is, the Book of Life by Krishna Murthy, when he talks about fame, which we're all guilty of seeking in some form or the other. And in the book, as I've explained before, he addresses his philosophical reasonings and theories in question and answer format. And the question that's put to him is, why do we seek fame? And Krishna Murthy answers, and he says, have you ever thought about it? We want to be famous as a writer, as a poet, as a painter, as a politician, as a singer, or what you will. Why? Because we really don't love what we are doing. If you love to sing, or to paint, or to write poems, if you really loved it, you would not be concerned with whether you are famous or not. To want to be famous is tawdry, trivial, stupid. It has no meaning. But because we don't love what we are doing, we want to enrich ourselves with fame. Our present education is rotten because it teaches us to love success and not what we are doing. The result has become more important than the action. You know, it is good to hide your brilliance under a bushel, to be anonymous, to love what you are doing and not to show off. It is good to be kind without a name. That does not make you famous. It does not cause your photograph to appear in the newspapers. Politicians do not come to your door. You are just a creative human being living anonymously, and in that there is richness and great beauty. Now, those words from Krishna Murthy apply to all of us, myself included. It's a failing of human nature that we strive and seek fame, for we think it's going to make us happy. And I think that all of us are in a constant state of growing and learning and trying to understand what it is that really brings us joy and happiness. And I don't think fame is one of those things. And I think that with Mr. Christie, his search, his personal and professional search, what he's going to realize is that by attaching his name to every story that's coming out so that he can become famous is ultimately going to make him unhappy and, ironically, infamous. Thank you.